In a nursery school, two children laugh and drool and doodle on the pages of an open book. They don't know what their race is, and all they see is color. A monarch butterfly floats down from a blue sky and takes a long, cool drink with a brown moth on a flower that's bright pink, and all they see is color. On a gray sidewalk, strangers pass with a nod, no talk, don't want to really know about each other. Their eyes are saying so, and all they see is color. All they see is color. A poem in our guest James Feichthaler's book, From the Back Porch of a War. Good evening. My name is Charles Carr, and welcome to Philly Loves Poetry, a collaboration between the Moonstone Art Center of Philadelphia and PhillyCam. The focus of our program is to give our audience the experience of the rich culture of poetry in the city of Philadelphia. So, as we always do, we have another great local poet, James Feichthaler. James is a poet with roots in Philadelphia, but he now resides in Trenton, New Jersey, where he lets me know he watches the skies for UFOs, sings Irish folk songs on his porch, and drinks beer. James's new book, From the Back Porch of a War, was published by Pinellas Media this year, 2024, and it pulls no punches in its assessment of a politically divided America seemingly at war with itself, searching for moral integrity in a hashtag-hardened, spiritually bankrupt world. Amidst the smoke of riots, election fraud, and vaccine conspiracy theories, apocalyptic forces look to reset the clock on a monstrously self-serving version of humanity, too proud to hear the noise. James says and writes, "Let us engage, dear people, in a conversation before our politics destroy our nation." So welcome, James.
Thank you, Charles. Good to be
It's
here.
great to have you finally.
I know,
'Cause
right?
I know I've invited you a couple of times. You said, hold on, I'm working on some things, and when I get there, leave the invitation open. So I'm glad we got here.
I appreciate it.
So before we really get into our discussion, and there's two collections here. There's the From the Back Porch of a War, but there's also another collection here, Kofefi.
The Rise of the Kovife, Biglier version. Biglier version, yeah.
Yeah, which we will talk about as well. But I believe, James, this is a significant collection of poems, your book, because of the breadth of the subject matters that you touch about on modern America. I'm really surprised that and I went on and I Googled. I didn't see more reviews and discussion of this book, but I think it's a major contribution in American poetry today.
Thank you.
And I hope people that are watching or listening will buy this book. I think it's a marvelous book. It has everything, and it touches on everything that we're experiencing in this country and this world. More than halfway through your book, you sort of summarize the thrust of these poems, which read like a very long poem, in Murder Music, and I'll quote it. "From my back porch, the city I know looks like some madman's rendering of a frontline battle, a canvas splashed with blood. These kids pull and steal with no respect for lives they wreck." So talk about that this world, what that you have brought in and this view. Yes, I find it interesting also that you use a painterly description in one of those lines. And I think I told you, I think I was thinking of the painting of Tintoretto, a battle of Archangel Michael and Satan. And you do have the archangels in your collection.
Yeah,
But I'll
they're in
turn
there.
it over to you to really talk about how you went about building this collection.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, and thank you for the kind words. Very humbling. Yeah, I mean, it was it really the book kind of came upon me during the pandemic. I mean, that's just how it is. The germ of it began with actually a sonnet that I wrote with the same title that was published in One Art. Shout out to Mark Danowski for publishing that. And then I was like, I liked the poem, but the title for the title for the poem was, I was like, this is too good for the poem. It needs to be a title of a book. So I had already started, excuse me, penning some short poems. Kovife was already in the works, if not done at that point. I think actually the From the Back Porch of a War came on the heels of that. So I had finished Kovife, it was published as a chapbook, and then maybe just took a minute or so to chill out and then put that out. So, or started penning this poem to backtrack on that. But yeah, the actual, the murder music poem that you quoted there, the character is Mad Mrs. Williamson from a part of the book titled Murderers Boulevard, and then Return to Murderers Boulevard. But in the book, many characters appear more than once. But Murderers Boulevard was the glue to the book, I would say, because there's about 5 sections. It actually ends back porch at one point, but it gave me a chance to, in between those sections, to kind of just explore other things. But I mean, and the word war, I mean, it brings up so many different thoughts. You know, going back to the pandemic, I mean, yeah, it's psychological war because if you're on Twitter, if you're on social media, you just have this flood of negativity. Really, no positive vibes going out there. You know, take the vaccine, don't take the vaccine. If you wear a mask, you're an idiot. If you don't wear a mask, you're not, kind of deal. And I just saw a lot of ugliness that was being shown to each other verbally. So then you had a war of words going on. And yeah, I mean, it just we were in a war, and then you had the George Floyd incident happen. You had the election, which people got even uglier online when that came around, and then you had January 6th. So the book, so all that happened, and then the completion of the book was after that. But that was kind of crawling out of the pandemic, and just trying to figure out where do we go from here, kind of.
Well, also, it's the structure of your poems. I mean, it's a very interesting, I mean, you have a very specific structure for poems. I mean, it does vary,
Mm-hmm.
but you're very much your rhyme scheme, the structure of your lines. You're very careful in that, but applied to this milieu. I mean, you do a lot on gun violence, on the violence of words. I mean, there's so much in here that you. But I'm very interested in your selection of the form that you use to create these poems.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to give a certain energy as one reads through it.
Yes, well, I mean, I work in rhyme and meter, which can be frowned upon at times. I think it's, to me, the essence of poetry is that it's, you know, the compression of words in a line, and whether you work as a free verse poet or whether you work with rhyme, the compression is that inborn rhythm that you have that comes out in one way or another. You know, you may or may not know I have a hip hop background as well. Big Tal Taliesin, look that up, aka Taliesin, aka Big Tal. But I did music for many years. But you know, I always say that you know, the hip hop music, that is, you know, you have the beat going, and then you get to where you have to, you're cramming the words in to fit the beat, and then to come to the next line, you have that enjambment, as they say, with with poetry on the page. But you have to figure out how to fit the, how you're going to play around with the words to make them flow, and that's the natural part of it. But then the fun part of it is like flipping the words and the rhyme schemes, the internal rhymes, all that stuff, which brought me to the written page. Hip hop and poetry, the written page kind of hit me at the same time in college. Kind of came to me at the same time. I kind of fell in love with them both at the same time. So, yeah, for me, poetry has always been rhyming me the rhymes. That's just it. That's what gets my juices going.
Yeah, myself, I really struggle with rhyme, but I like the music of poetry. I like the music of words. But the fact that you vigorously stick to your rhyme scheme,
Right.
and you make it work. You make it work from line to line. And the thing, I think the most successful part of this is it pushes the poem. You can get, a poet can get lost in trying to rhyme to the point where people say, come on now, you're pushing it too hard. But I really feel here that your use of rhyme pushed each one of these poems forward, to the end of the poem or to the next poem. And how do you do that?
A lot of whiskey shots. No, I'm joking. It's just, you know what? After a while, it becomes a mechanical skill. Like you moving to the second part of the book, Covife. I mean, I penned so many sections for that. I don't know where the muses took them. I don't know. A lot of them went to the scrap heap, but a lot of them didn't. But that's just the thing. If you have something that brings you to the page, it's always for me that first line, the music, as you said, that brings that what poetry is all about. But that brings you to the page, and you have an emotion going. Whether you're on social media, flipping through the channels, you got into an argument with your girlfriend or wife or whatever it is, it just sets it off. Brings you to the page. And for me, again, you say you can get lost. I get lost in another way. It's kind of the words just kind of move me on, and it's kind of like a release. And so, and I think too, again, getting back to, not to beat this to death, but when I started off, when you asked me earlier about the rhyming earlier in the interview, or about why I, or what forms I use, I think you were talking about. But, I said it's frowned upon. Well, I don't know how much it's frowned upon because, it depends on who you ask. But, I think in a lot of circles it's looked upon as old hat now. Like if you rhyme, you have no place in modern poetry. To me, it's the opposite. This is what the youth is listening to. This is what my youth listen to. It's rhymes.
Yeah.
And so, this is just on the page. This is just the mechanism for it, which is, rhyming stanzas, and that's how you get into it.
And people who are really not, reading a lot of poetry. I'm going to share an experience I had with a musician. It was a friend of mine, a very good musician and a songwriter. And he saw me. He had a copy of my book, my most recent book, and he says, Charles, do you have any rhyming poems? I said, well, my friend, I don't purposely go about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he seemed to be disappointed that I didn't. And I think to a lot of people, that's the way. I mean, there's friends of mine who, and I meet them sometimes, and they have memorized those Longfellow and the great rhyming poems. And that's great.
Right.
But what I want to say, it's the fact that you have achieved this, and then not to somebody say, well, geez, this is all rhyming. I think the greatness of it is rhyming, and the fact that you have mastered the rhyme in the way you have. I mean, I'm really an admirer. I'm just saying myself.
Thank you.
It would be. I can do it, okay. but not to the length that you do it. I mean, it's really a mastery. The other thing is the breadth of what you've taken on. I mean, I think I said to you when I was talking to you on the phone, I'm reading a famous book of history, and by a famous historian called Howard Zinn, People's History of the United States, which is an alternative interpretation and rendering of American history.
Mm-hmm.
And I would recommend it. But as I was reading, I said, as I'm reading both of your books, I said, this could be a companion in poetry to what I'm reading, because a lot of the things that are in this book about the Constitution, the treating of minorities, the treating of Native American people, they're in here, but there's also in that. And so that's the strength of it. I mean, the breadth of the two books, what you take on, I think is really amazing.
Thank you again. I appreciate the kind words, and yeah, the history. It goes to the victors, right? Depends on who's writing that book. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that to be honest, I don't know of a country or a nation that doesn't have an ugly past. I mean, if you look around the world, there's a lot of ugliness. Then again, in human nature, the same. But yeah, our country, I've said this many times. I think we're the greatest country in the world. That being said, we're, all things considered, we're a young country, and we have our scars, that we carry, whether it's racism, slavery, Native Americans, just, I think actually that was part of the conversation we had. I think we got into talking about Andrew Jackson, the Trail of Tears and all that, but here we are today, and I think that's something with this book, not just with the politics, but, because the Covfefe is really dark. Now, I'm not saying there's not dark parts of From the Back Porch of a War, but the Covfefe, second half of the book, it gets very dark, and I made it a point in From a Back Porch to speak on love and, let us engage their people in a conversation before our politics destroy a nation. The whole thing is like, let's get back to talking. We're not always going to agree on every point. We come from different backgrounds, different cultures, and that's the beauty of America. That's the beauty of America. We talk about, it's so much in the news now about, illegal immigrants, and most of the time, when I hear it, it's when there's a politician on or a commercial on, to elect somebody. That being said, it is, the border is a problem. We'd all love for, everything to be nice and smooth, but that's not how things work. Even going back to, at Ellis Island, with Statue of Liberty. I mean, we all, none of us here are not a descendant of an immigrant. That's just a fact. So, people that, it blows my mind how quickly people will jump on a certain issue and then run with it, but in the most negative way. As if to say all immigrants are rapists, all immigrants are murderers, all immigrants are this or that. We have plenty of our own American citizens, that are here,
right,
that are messing it up for the lot of us. I mean, we have to get in. Not to get too dark, like I said, but I mean, gun violence, mass shootings, all that stuff. Many of those things take place in American hands. The bloodshed that happens, and not to go on too deep, not too much about the violence, but that's kind of.
Well, I like the fact that you spent a proportional amount of From the Back Porch talking about that gun violence, because I think it's a really important subject, unresolved.
Yes.
And it's the characterization of America as a uniquely very violent country. And I mean, when people say children are dying not from some epidemic, they're dying from gun violence.
Yeah,
that's really,
it's a big problem with the youth. Big time.
James, also, I've read an article that you wrote, and it was called An Invitation for Realism. And I'm just going to quote from that, and I want you to kind of respond to it. To attain truth in one's poetry, one must align a series of symbolic stars in a galaxy of already accepted truths that reality puts forth through sight, sound, touch, and experience, making one's works vivid enough so that all walks of life can identify with them in some way.
I think I was smoking something when I wrote that. No, no, the for realism, that was kind of my, just, I wanted to write an essay, and shout out to Josh Dale, 30 West Publishing, for publishing that. And it was an introduction to for realism, as you said. But yeah, it was just kind of my axioms of poetry. They always fall around truth and getting to the truth in the quickest way. But for realism, there was another part of that, which is to get to the truth through art in the most imaginatively simple way. So in other words, not simple as in like simple-minded, but like simple as like a single lily might be blooming in a cluster of rocks. Just that, the vivid imagery of that, it's just there.
Right.
And that's what the human experience is. That's what poetry, the best poetry is. It touches on our human experience and how it moves us. Yeah. And that's kind of what I was getting to in that essay. And the thing about it is, being a poet, as incredible as it is to have so many references in poetry from all walks of life that we can reference, talking about the great ones. You go back, we were talking about that before this interview, that you can reference, but all these symbols were here, the sun, the moon, water, all this stuff, or just love, whatever it is. All this stuff has been done time and time again, but that's the whole reason too that it brings us back time and time again, because it's the human experience. Why do we enjoy a poem so much? Because it's the human element of it that brings us back, that we enjoy. And then when it's done artfully, that's when it's poetry, because anybody can write a Valentine and put some chocolate in the envelope and oh my love, I love you,
Yeah.
But it's deeper than that.
Yeah. One of my biggest, marks with good poetry is the word that I use, maybe overuse, is accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that with your poems, and then with these poems. Covfefe is really brilliant, and it's brilliant. Once again, you use a specific form, and you really stick to that form, which is iambic pentameter, and the rhyming scheme is very strong.
Right, that was the same for that whole poem. Yeah.
And it's a long poem. It's like a 47-page poem.
Something like that.
I mean, that's
I had
epic.
to stop myself eventually.
Yeah, that's epic.
Mm-hmm.
Just explain to our audience, if they haven't heard it before, the origins of the term Covfefe.
Sure. Yeah, that was Trump when he was in office. He tweeted out, with all the negative press, Covfefe, right? So I took the word Covfefe, and everybody, that was like trending on Twitter for like a few days, which is a lot for Twitter, right? But anyway, everybody was making jokes about it, but I took it and used it as a metaphor or an analogy of the government behind the government, like whether there is one or there isn't, like the Illuminati, whether there's the Illuminati, whether there isn't. But I took Covfefe, used it as the government behind the government, and the narrator of that poem is a member of the Covfefe. So in the secret society that is just pushing all these buttons to make us all go nuts, to make us all go crazy, enjoying seeing us just continually bash each other, enjoying, buildings on fire. All this is money in their pocket, in other words. And so in one way, it kind of absolved me from, like, I could kind of hold the mirror up and hold people accountable without being preachy, because this guy's evil, right? He's part of the secret society. All he cares about is his bankroll and how he can get there, and at the same time enjoying the chaos. And yeah, well, I forget what was the what was the other thing I was going to say? I'm losing my train of thought here. What the heck was I going to say? Just the fact that, yeah, I know what I was going to say. It actually felt good writing from that evil perspective, a little too much. But you can get lost in that, and it was good to kind of speak from another voice, but getting back to your original question, it just opened up the floodgates. So now I can talk about gun violence. Now I can talk about racism. Now I can talk about just, pollution. Now I can talk about global warming, all this stuff. I can just talk about it from an evildoer's perspective who doesn't give a damn about the planet, doesn't give a damn about the people, etc. And just, go with it.
What I saw, the origin of the word was with our former president, but that's not what it was all about. I mean, you use that as kind of a springboard
Right.
to the wider
Right.
issues that are affecting us, and the characters you had created in that poem. And so before we kind of wrap up the discussion, I wanted to ask you two things about your influences. What poems and what poetry informs your work?
I go to I have a few guys that I go to. W.B. Yeats is a big one of mine. As you know, you take part in. I'm about to plug something here, but my annual Yeats celebration, tribute of Wild Tears that we do at Trenton Pub in Trenton, New Jersey every year. You know that I'm a big fan of his poetry, Shakespeare. All the biggies. And most of these guys are rhyming poets. Keats, Frost, I like Langston Hughes. So going to non-rhyming guys, Bukowski is a favorite of mine, and with him again, like he's a free verse poet, but it's about the art, it's the way he uses words and how he gets to the crux of things. The stuff, the guys that get my juices going are the wordsmiths, that just play around with language and just have fun with it.
Yeah, you have an edge in these poems. You have an edge in your poem, like Bukowski. I love Bukowski myself, but you have a real edge in there, like he does. And Bukowski I always saw as fearless. And that he would write a poem about anything.
He could.
Anything.
Yeah.
And then I'm not saying characterizing your book here is just about anything. It's about some very substantial things. What are you working on now? What's the next phase for James, and what are you working on now?
I'm working on the Rise of the Covife Part 2. Everybody, no, I'm joking. No, I'm done with that. I'm done with that. I'm not, I'm done with the Covife. No, right now, I'm working on another collection of poems. I don't want to give too much away, but
Sure.
But yeah, I've been penning a few sonnets, been penning a few new poems for a couple of different books I have in mind. So yeah, there'll be some more poetry coming.
Oh, great! That's really great to know. Before we leave, you didn't really in your bio give really share that we talk about this program as Philly Loves Poetry.
Right.
But you had a series
right.
that you hosted. How many years?
About 10 years.
And that was called
The Dead Bards of Philadelphia. Yeah.
And you used to do, and you started in the bookstore, right?
In the Spiral
Then
bookcase,
you ended up at Venice Island, which was a fantastic.
It was a
venue.
great space. It really was a great space. It was tough to get people in there, and when I say that, like, as you know, a poetry reading, if you have 10 people, you're doing pretty good. If you have 20 people, you're doing incredible.
Yeah.
But that being such an incredible, beautiful space, to read poetry in, I don't know if this is the case or not. I just felt like Philadelphians look at Manayunk as its own country, kind of, and if it's a little too much effort to get out there, although like yourself, you would make the effort, and quite a few poets made the effort to go out there. But I'm just saying, it just seemed like, it was tough to get people in there. That being said, it was a good run, and we had a lot of good readings. And the pandemic kind of, I was already looking to kind of move on when the pandemic hit, and I tried to kind of pass the torch a little bit. But Venice Island still runs great art programs down there, and they're always looking for people to come down and do stuff.
It's a beautiful venue. The other thing you mentioned it briefly is this annual Yeats celebration you do at his birthday, in celebration of his birthday. And once again, I'm talking about the love of poetry. You bring poets from Philadelphia. I mean, that pub is so authentically an Irish pub.
Yeah.
And I thank you very much for inviting me there. But it is such a joy.
It's a cool
to go, and the people that you invite and their discussions of Yeats. I mean, I learn a lot just sitting there listening to these other poets that talk about their love of Yeats. So that's another thing that I think you should put in your bio, because I think it's a very significant event now. You've been doing what, 6 years, 5, 6 years?
Yeah, I think this year was our 4th year running.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we hope, God willing, we'll do it this year. It's always in June.
Yeah.
Because Yeats' birthday is in June. So.
Well, this was a great discussion, but our viewers want to hear your poems.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn it over to you,
All right.
and the floor is yours.
Before I get to that, Charles, thank you once again for having me.
It's great having you.
So I'm going to start with the opening of the book, From the Back Porch of a War. There's a quote in here from another poet and painter whose work I really dig, Rick Mullen. One judgment day too many is upon us. Watch for the signs. Miracles everywhere. The world is drowning in its own self-pity. TikTok stars flame out and streak across the gram. A hormoon blushes in a sky AI created, skeezed with sores, where an ox-white beast with fruit-shaped birthmarks snores upon a wiry mattress, so confounding the terrible noise it makes, its cobalt teeth flashing mute messages to the thumb-tired masses. Strange fins like wasp wings keep it hovering above a city nobody is governing, ruled by insomnia, blue check-marked fears. A hashtag-hardened, hacked humanity, enamored with the opioid-triggered tears of woke celebs, all claiming victim or insanity. Yo, look, there's Satan with his entourage, eating a double cheeseburger at Denny's. And there's St. Michael with his armor off, tweeting his followers from a coffee shop. And Jezebel is going down on dogs, and the Madonna is appearing in a garden where roses haven't bloomed since 1945. To 6 blind children wearing shirts that say, "We shall overcome." While the Antichrist is downloading more porn and playing Lil Nas X's music backwards, boots up on a pile of soldier skulls, smoking a long cigar he dipped in cyanide. O riders galloping on your horses 4, aren't you the least bit sick of all this war? Which of you pricks would end the world right now, if like the Christ, your task-sworn hands knew how? Maybe that homeless mystic, Nostradamus, will tell us when the final hour is upon us, or in between long swigs of lukewarm brew, reveal God's plan, as if his drunk ass knew. We're being played like Adam in the garden, the serpent speaks, we mindlessly obey. Machine guns rattle our computer screens. We sigh, throw hands up, mumble, look away. Body-on-body piles, and most don't care enough to make the next man's troubles theirs. Too busy filming him to heed his cries, heads down in cell phones, streaming his demise. And as a dope fiend ties away his arm, as a bishop gropes another altar boy, as a suicide bomber detonates her flesh, as a shivering war vet drops his cup of change, as a politician poses with his rifle, as a blank-faced shooter blasts into a school, as a dozen children bleed out in their classrooms. The universe is telling us it's over. The universe is telling us it's over. But the suits aren't listening, and no one's sober. as that wanderer Carter Phyllis shouts, fake news. Section 2, fake news. The prophets got it wrong, grunts Carter Phyllis. False choppers housing a gordita crunch. The world won't end in fire or in ice, but with man's meddling by his own device. And just as he says this, a buzzed mailman skips into his workplace and sprays up his boss, a mean old hag who used to dock his pay because he wouldn't give her compliments. He calls her warm corpse Sammy, strokes her hair, and plops down on her favorite leather chair, scoops up her goldfish and bites off its head, then thinks out loud, we living or the dead? Section 3, Invasion of the Ballot Snatchers. The revolution's being televised. A national pride is sweeping across the nation. With pissed-off ghouls who want its laws revised, a recount or a valid explanation as to why their king's been stripped of his vocation of draining all those swamps from which they crawled. Foam-mouthed and frenzied, brains, hopes, reason slawed. A high-def insurrection for the ages. Unconstitutional, directly streamed into your living rooms on several stages and several channels, red, white, whiskey fumed. A coup you didn't see coming, duly doomed by fake news newscasts, patriots gone wild, like those topless blondes a drunk Fat Tuesday styled. Zombies in HD, fucking up your vision, worse than a tailgater's high beams flashing, a flash mob's impulse pulsing with precision, that years of planning purposed through rehashing behind closed doors, to cheers and finger snapping, standing ovations, hell yeahs, passionate speeches, with plots to storm D.C. like Normandy's hallowed beaches. A day that will live and die with tyranny, with varying pixelation on your screen, in out of focus like an old man's eye that a cataract's tainted with its milky sheen. A day to remember and forget between your daily drags of arguing online, revisiting history, revisionist revising it again. A sign of things to come, sign of the times whose people cannot see beyond their noses, a terrible beauty, born of nursery rhymes and silly cosplay kids in warriors' poses, dressed up like Vikings, Davy Crockett, Moses, with Bible verses stitched into their flags that warn of dangerous wolves who pose in sheepish rags. You knew this day was coming, but not when. The threat of civil war was always threatening. And yet, who knew that chaos come again would come because a demagogue was lecturing his valiant band of rebels to go bring the trophy home. Those votes his woke foes shredded because they feared his power, the direction he was headed. They swore to back the blue and all those sacred badges of liberty that freedom's fathers founded, then trashed the Senate in a state of vote-crazed madness. The blue they backed left black and blue confounded, and all those treasonous flags that they were proudly waving for America's sake, strange banners they were flying, swastika'd up, revealed whose house those ghouls were saving, a house 2 wars had leveled, somehow thriving. Last part of this section here. Section 4, where there's smoke, there's chaos. Scorch landmarks slurp up globs of greasy rain, which sizzle as they ooze from charbroiled skies. And on the pavement where a man was slain by a malicious and unruly mob, the chalk outline of his contorted body points to the headline of an old newspaper, which reads like past and present history. We'll have to fight to save democracy. So that was the end of that section there. How much time do I got a few minutes, right?
Oh, yeah, you got time.
So yeah, don't want to read you the whole book, but that's how the book opens. We go kind of from lockdown, and that was another thing that I hadn't mentioned was kind of the apocalyptic flavor of these poems. It just got to a point where you feel like there's an ominous cloud hanging over everything. We go from event. It's like waking up every day to something unpleasant, to put it lightly. So, that's how the book opens, and, we get to January 6th, and then, yes, we will. There's many ways you can fight to save democracy, and hopefully, with this election coming around, we can learn to be more civil to each other. So I'm going to just kind of scan through the book. There's a character that I mentioned in that opening section, section 1, Nostradamus. In this book, Nostradamus, a.k.a. Nostro, is a homeless gentleman, ex-ball player, was heading to the NBA, but unfortunately was in a drive-by, and he lost part of his sight. So now he wanders the streets of Murderers Boulevard, which is another section in this book, like I stated earlier, but kind of gives his take on things, you know. Again, absolving myself from all this. This one's called Nostradamus Has Some Questions. Oh, brother, have you seen your son of late scrolling through Facebook feeds of violent reels? The boy lacks purpose, filled with so much hate that he can't see beyond society's ills. He's bought himself an AK-47 and swears on Yeezy that it's just for show. But by the look in his cold eyes, my brethren, he's going to murder everyone you know. Oh, sister, hollering at them blinged out skies, why do these kids keep murdering each other? We settled shit with fists back in the day. At worst, lost teeth. Sometimes we'd gain a brother. Now it's strangers killing strangers, catching strays, on blocks where drugs is the only currency. Vengeance is king. The youth don't know no peace unless they hear that murder music play. Oh, murderous stars of drive-by prophecy, recycling themes of hatred in my hood. Where did this genocide become our history? When will it stop? When there's another flood? Old Nostro's been having crazy dreams of late, about limp skies that roll up like a scroll, and sackcloth suns, and days devoid of light. But the world keeps spinning like a drunk man's soul. So since we are nearing election time, again, I think some of this stuff really is stranger than fiction. And in this book, there will be direct references, but I didn't I could have done it. I could have just casted out a line on Twitter and just waited for something, pull off any topic of the day. But I feel right now, not to talk too much about the poems, because hopefully the poems can speak for themselves, but with the last election and now, on both sides of the fence, you know, at the end of the day, the people that are going to be in office are human beings, right? These are not divinely sent people. That's all I'm going to say. Not to my knowledge. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But this one's called A Bad Case of Savioritis. Why are the people screaming at each other? Why did that Jezebel not make her lover slide on a condom when they did the deed? Her claw-gashed womb received its trembling seed. Is the beast with 7 global shareholds hers? Its trademark gut, its crown emoji spurs? Or is that gluttonous freak show in the heavens some snake oil salesman's try at 777s? How did that arrogant cash bleed of a salesman so soil the minds of a divided nation with lies so cleverly and simply stated they passed for truth, left the world fascinated? So this particular poem, in finishing up the book, there were a couple sections that I rewrote. Section 3, I didn't feel had enough juice, didn't really put me, or wouldn't put the reader back in January 6th again in the way that I wanted it to put me there. Anyway, and I had another short section in the latter part of Back Porch. There was another poem, I think it was about vaccines, and I think I had hammered that point home enough. So at the time, there was a certain beer can that was getting a lot of heat, and it got to the point see videos of guys shooting cases of beer because of the picture that was on it. Anyway, this one's about that. Not specifically shooting beer cans, but just the outrage over a Bud Light can. One for the Bud Light martyrs. You Yankee Doodle dipshits known to brag about small towns where courthouse lynchings would be at. If Uncle Sam rode ponies dressed in drag, would y'all lynch his ass too? That chaos math, those number crunches slapped onto your beer, with its corporate mindfuck made no sense, CENTS, but this. Freedom's gold beverage, whether straight or queer, when it's poured from taps of hatred, tastes like piss. So this poem is in the same kind of flurry of shorter poems in the book. Divided we stand. Getting back to, if I may say again, not to talk too much about it, but we seem to be heading in the same direction, whoever gets elected into office, where we're just going to have another 4 years of bickering, shouting, typing all caps on social media, which isn't going to get us anywhere. As long as you're being respected in a conversation about your views, seek out your brother or your sister and try to have a conversation about this stuff, because you'll find we're more similar than dissimilar as human beings. This one's called Divided We Stand. Let us revisit what it means to be a patriot in this land of liberty. Pay respects to those unknown soldiers in the ground who gave their lives so that freedom stick around. Recall in one moment of unbiased silence those heroes who worked toward peace, cut down by violence. Let us engage, dear people, in a conversation before our politics destroy a nation. So I'm going to read 2 short poems. We have about another 10 minutes,
Yep.
Right? 2 short poems. These kind of go together. And again, some of this stuff is heavy stuff, but that's kind of where we're at. These are the last 2 sections in the before the first book part of the book winds up the title poem. No rest for the wicked. Growled Hitler to Beelzebub in the charcoal pits of hell. This place is filling up again. Things must be going well. Things aren't as good as we would like, spoke Beals. The game's done changed. Forbidden fruit is old hat now. The apple's more deranged. It's mostly wide-eyed gunmen that have kept our furnace hot, who spray up schools where children play, pack nightclubs and whatnot, with a rage still burning in their eyes when they arrive unquenched, the kind that Schicklgruber knew before that bum got benched. Yes, we still get our share of fiends and lawyers by the dozens, adulterers too who soil the sheets of not-so-distant cousins. And every now and then we get false prophets like Koresh, whose gospels always sound the same. Come, taste this pound of flesh. And psychopaths remain in vogue. You could attest to that. Though tyrants are so few these days, the nukes took care of that. But what are demon hands to do awaiting Judgment Day? Kill all the Jews, screamed Hitler back. That sounds like fun to me. Nostro drops some knowledge. Yeah, Nostro can see the future. So, what is it that you'd like to know? How the world ends, that Ukraine hell, if nature will reverse greed's pull? Here's knowledge, y'all, that I'll give for free. Far less all-telling prophecy, but something that my stars approve. Hatred is learned, and so is love. I'm going to read a part. I started the reading with the opening of the title poem, From the Back Porch of a War. I'm going to read the last section of The Rise of the Covife Biglier version, just to recap on that. Biglier version because when I put the chapbook out Very proud of that, by the way. Shout out to Matt Lake, my publisher, Parnellis Media. Very proud of that. What's in those contents, but a lot of pieces got left on the floor, the scrap floor, whatever, because the election was coming up and I had to get the book out. So in writing this poem, Back Porch, it gave me time to go back and kind of look through some sections. I'm like, why did I leave this out of the book? Why did I leave this? And so it also gave me time to go, why did I put this in the book? Even though, like I said, I'm proud of what's in there. I would say the Big Lear version is probably 65% newer than the old one. But this is the last section, and this is the only section that I actually, or one of two sections rather, that I wrote for the Big Lear version to end things. So this is from the narrator is a member of the Covife. America, you know Covife loves you, your third world charm, your suicidal gunman, your soulless style, no other place quite like you. Your kill or be killed, hunted, turning huntsman, still blowing shit up like that Muppet Bunsen, and making messes of our lab-made beans. We salute your slide and thank you for your pains. Your downfall seen the rise of our great empire. Your murderous ways drew blueprints for our peace. Your ice addiction, lust, fueled our desire with a quenchless burn, do wonders for our stress. A stress which comes from wondering who to press for monies yet unpaid or paid in full. Easy pass errors, highway robbery toll. Your bitch-ass fields have strengthened our resolve. Your race divides have only brought us closer. Your questioning our wrath has helped us solve more riddles than the universe can offer. Your beefs, blindsided by demented laughter, uproarious chuckles from our richest moguls, have slapped choice cuts of Wagyu on our tables, have given us caviar to slurp off spoons, thick lines of coke to sniff off strippers' asses, expensive hooch to toast with our tycoons, more reasons to drill our oil and siphon gases, more reasons to live, to shit all on the masses, more reasons to butcher, rape, unjustly maim, which in turn will give you cause to do the same. So keep on hashing out the same old troubles, like old men at the bar who drink too much. White privilege, poverty, the country's struggles, the anthem, standing for the flag and such. The woke deep state, the beer cans you would crush if someone served you, politics on draft. Keep arguing parties, pawns of ours thought daft, for their attempts of unifying the people, with talk of change and purpose and inclusion. And we'll keep serving up new brands of evil, meant to distract your whores, cause more confusion. A beat down here, another brain contusion. Another riot there, another protest. Another Millie Maid off pain and conquest. Another toast to our plutocracy, a lawless land known best for all its laws. Another cheer for your hypocrisy, for bloodied faces, broken necks and jaws. Another war, which brutally shocks and awe with its atrocities, for money reasons. Another landscape dump at the Four Seasons. Another baffling catastrophe where speeches are concerned and leaking info. Another wondrous sign or two or three, all up in lights, a craft brew selling nympho. Another porn star going through the window who filmed our dastardly mischievous deeds. Another swamp drain, weeding out the weeds. Another hike in prices, gas and eggs. The gas to keep you home, the eggs to gas you. Another veteran without his legs, begging for change next to some general statue. Another general pointing his finger at you, like Uncle Sam. God damn, it never stops. Another officer down. Another hood rat drops. With this last rant, we bid you all adieu, which is French for fuck off if you didn't know it. Like Biff said, we've more biglier things to do than analyze the musing of some poet. So it's back to popping bottles of Moet and cruising all those seas that we've polluted. Covife, bitches, find a flag, salute it.
We still have time for maybe one short one. If you want to read something.
Something else?
Yeah, we have about 2 minutes to go, and I think enough time to give us another sampling of it.
All right.
There's one there's just a part here. Maybe I'll read it.
Okay, yeah.
It's in part 5 of Kafefi. That's part. And it reads, and now we celebrate Columbus Day to keep his blood-smeared legacy alive, and Andrew Jackson has a holiday to ease your burden of 9 to 5. And each November, if our stocks don't dive, we join our hands in prayer and thank the Lord that them engines spared us all and felt our sword. Give thanks for what you have, America, so rich, so plentiful, so goddamn boundless. Land where the pilgrims spread hysteria and smallpox till the native voice went soundless. Land where the massacres of tribes were countless, and the blood of warrior chiefs baptized the tree where nooses swung in times of slavery. That part really, and especially since what I'm reading right now about the American history and our treatment of the indigenous population and so much history that we don't know about, but which really characterizes a continuing manifesto in our history down to today by what we say about people of color, about the people coming across the border, etc.
Unfortunately.
But I thought that was a very powerful piece. I underlined it. So thank you very much, James. It was very enjoyable.
Charles,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
And I hope this will give a little charge to interest in your book. I'd say to people out there, this is really a hell of a good book to read. And both sections are very fascinating. And it's not if you like poetry. I think maybe this will be an introduction for some people who say, I don't understand poetry. There's a force to this that's really worth reading. It's a good read. So I thank you again. And of course, I thank you to Philly Cam, and I thank you to Sergio, who's a man that makes magic here at Philly Cam, and he's been doing it with me for 8 years. And without him, I don't know what I would do. He's done so many. We've done so many shows together. I also have to give a recognition when we talk about the love of poetry to the Moonstone Art Center. And if you don't know about what we do, it's really fantastic. Just about every week, and on a Wednesday night, and sometimes even on a Sunday, there's a poetry reading at Fergie's Pub or someplace else. We do over 100 events, poetry reading events each year. We publish, and we publish books of poets. We have, I think Larry has now, we've racked up about 185 books. And in addition, he does these thematic anthologies, which, like this, captures what's happening at the moment. There's just something that has come out. It's going to be an event that I'll share with people. I'll send you some information about the senseless killing of this Latino man a year ago by an officer as he was sitting in his car, and this created great outrage. But this is just another event that was been met with poetry and the outrage of the artistic community over this. And so these are just some of the things that Moonstone does. So I say all that is that we need your support. So you can go to our website, moonstoneartcenter.org, and find out a way that you can support us and contribute to our continuing success. So thank you very much to everybody for tuning in tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I did, and I'll see you next time.